You know, there's a number of occasions in Matthew's Gospel where we hear the phrase, ears to hear and eyes to see. And in Matthew 13, Jesus says this. He says, "Blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see, but did not see it, and hear what you hear, and did not hear it." You know, as Christians, I think that poses an amazing question. What do you see? What do you hear? You know, Jesus was talking about truth, and we all know that when we realize the truth, it's the truth that sets us free. But what else do we know? What else do we see? What else do we hear? In other words, what's going on in the society around us? We know when we listen to the news, we see conflict, we see unstable economic structures, we see an overburdened health service and rising fuel costs. I think we're all experiencing that at the moment. And that greater division between the wealthy and the poor. So how do we see it? How do we hear it? How do we perceive the cry of the poor around us? It's a big question, isn't it? And I think like most things, it's a want and a desire, isn't it? A want and desire to see and to recognize what's going on. A want and desire to do what's right. And a want and desire to share something of what we have. And I think that's God's grace. It's God's grace allowing us to be more attentive. It's God's grace to be more attentive to the needs of the people around us. So what about the poor? What about those people in need? What about the people that are pushed to the margins of neglect? And what about the people that feel powerless to be able to do something about it? I don't think it takes a great social analyst to come up with some of the answers. I'm sure that in your own communities, in your own churches, you will know families that are pushed to the edge. Those choosing between eating and eating. So who's suffering? Who is it that's tremendously burdened? You know, poverty doesn't always make the news, but being sensitive to the stories is a good place for us to start. Asking God to reveal to us who are the people in need, and asking God to open our eyes, to open our ears to what's going on around us. And then there's the big question, isn't there? What can we do about it? What can we do to share some of what we have with those people around us? And I don't want this to sound like a burden, because I don't think that's what Jesus would want. He doesn't want to burden us. But let's not forget that it's only by the grace of God that we have the things that we have. It's only by the grace of God that we're able to share the things that we're given. So you might want to ask yourself, what do I have? And what am I willing to share? In 2 Corinthians 9, Paul says this. He says, "Whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously." So what do we have that we can share or we can sow into the lives of those people around us? Is it our time? Is it our expertise? Is it our wealth? Or is it something else? In other words, what are your God-given gifts? What are your gifts that God has given you that you could share? What are your spiritual gifts? Is it the gift of faith, the gift of discernment, or the gift of hospitality? Or how about the gift of love, or the gift of compassion that we find in each and every one of our souls? I think you'll agree that these questions are pretty simple, but the answers, well, they can be pretty complex, can't they? So here's the challenge for this coming week: to spend some time or some more time with God, to work out some of these answers. And just remember, that answer is going to be different for each and every one of us, because it just depends what's right for you.